Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I like. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Castle as well as Blindspot. In this week's episode of Castle, it deals heavily with Haley, which is kind of like very interesting because it's our first like heavily Haley-centric episode. In this episode, Haley at the beginning had got called in by an old associate of hers from MI6 named Bryce. He had basically partnered her up with this guy named, Marcus. Basically, they were to plant spyware onto a certain businesses. The head of the, it's like some electric business. Basically put spyware on the head honcho's computer because they had kind of lied to her and told them it was kind of kind of them doing PI work, kind of like, oh, he's cheating on his wife. She was kind of doing it as a favor to Bryce. But it ends up turning out that her partner, Marcus, ended up getting murdered. Haley kind of gets involved in an investigation, at the beginning, trying to cover her tracks and make sure, because she wanted to kind of keep herself out of the investigation. Which this kind of showed you Haley's deduction skills. I mean, obviously, like, she had a little more information about the circumstances than Castle did, but she kind of pieced everything together pretty quickly about what kind of went down and when it went down. Kind of took Castle by surprise because Castle was constantly, he was bragging to her because she even said it. She's like, oh yeah, you talked about how like the NYPD would be completely lost without you. And he was just like, oh, there were jokes. You just kind of had to be there. Because Castle kind of was always kind of like, that he solves these crimes. And Esposito and Ryan had to correct him like, no. You help us solve crimes. You don't solve them. You help us solve them. But essentially, Haley ended up talking to Bryce and ended up finding out, forgot what the code was, but he gave her a specific code, and that code means it's time to run, leave everything you love behind. And so, what you end up finding out is basically the whole thing was a setup. Someone wanted to set Haley up because the spyware she implanted was actually a spyware used to attack London. It basically knocked out all the power in London. I think it was specifically Manchester, if I'm remembering that correctly. And she was basically being blamed for it. This was, quote unquote, an act of terrorism. Everything, Marcus's murder as well as Bryce's murder, and Haley kind of being set up in this whole situation, led to some things being found out about Haley. Finding out a little bit about her partner. It kind of gets brought up by an MI6 agent who came looking for Haley because he thought she was behind everything. But he brought up the fact that she kind of had a bit of a checkered past. Because her past isn't something Haley does really talk about, her time with MI6. Kind of even talk about the reason why she left, which is what we found out in this episode. The MI6 agent's basically saying that she left her partner behind and he died. Which kind of, Alexa was kind of like, you left your partner behind? And she's like, it's not like that. Essentially what happened was, it kind of got found out. But the MI6 kind of just abandoned them, specifically her partner Wes, and he was, captured and killed. And because of that, because MI6 just abandoned him like that, Haley decided that she was kind of done with them. She couldn't trust MI6 anymore, so that's why she left. But the MI6 agent made it sound like, in the beginning, he eventually said himself like he was just doing that kind of to paint her in a bad light so Castle would give her up. But that's kind of sad, finding out, the person behind everything was her partner Wesley back in the day. I thought I was under the impression they had something a little intimate going on. It wasn't that. They were just friends. She even said like she was kind of his only friend. And she kind of brought up something very interesting that, because he did all this because he said it was their like plan, kind of their retirement plan. Basically, this was all him getting revenge on his government for abandoning him. Basically, him kind of going through hell because of them. Granted, it's like, he makes it sound like he was going to run away with Haley. Like, oh, yeah, this is a great thing. It's like, that's a little messed up. How is that really going to be like, oh, let's run off together after you set her up for everything? Granted, he did say it was like, basically she was like, wait, was this whole thing a loyalty test? It was basically to see if she would go to the cops or not. And she obviously weaved in and out, getting help from, Castle, Beckett, Ryan, and Esposito, but she kind of handled and did a lot of stuff by herself too. So it's like, it's just kind of sad, because he's not the same man that she knew back in the day. Whatever, torture he kind of went through, and being abandoned by MI6 and, Haley, even though she didn't really abandon him. She's sorry for it, but it's like, to me, it's like, in that type of situation, it wasn't her fault, but, she brought up something very interesting, how, like, because Alexis is the one that talked her out of running, because she was going to pack her bags, had her different passports, tons of money, and a gun on her. Like, she was going to run, but Alexis kind of told her to stay, because she's always running. She never took roots anywhere, but this is her first time kind of taking root. She kind of got attached to everyone. This is a life that she's come to like, and she's kind of opened up to everyone. Granted, she hasn't opened up entirely, because there's still parts of her past she keeps secret, but it's like, when you have a past like hers, it kind of makes sense. Truth be told is, I wasn't expecting it to be someone from her past. I was honestly, I don't know why I thought so. I was thinking it was Lockset setting her up, but it's like, nah, he wouldn't go through such, measures. I feel like if you're going to set her up, she'd be dead by now. Rather than just killing everyone around her, he would have, like, set her up even harder. And speaking of it, it's very interesting that this is another person being framed for murder. This is, I think, the third one in this show. Because Beckett's been framed at least once. Castle's been framed, and now Haley. Do correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Ryan or Esposito has ever been framed for one. I definitely know Ryan's gun was used in a crime. Someone had gotten that gun from that serial killer. The one that took an interest in Castle. He had given his gun to someone, and they had used it in a crime. I think that's the closest thing. I could be remembering that wrong. Like, there being actual cases of Ryan and Esposito being framed, but I don't know. But overall, a very nice episode. I did love the constant joke about how Beckett had a dream about Castle, and he did something in it, which made her not want to trust him. Like, he was about to kiss her in the morning. She's like, no, I can't. It's just, I know it was a dream, but you did something. You kind of betrayed my trust. And he's like, I didn't actually do anything. You dripped me doing something. She kind of gave him kind of a stern look, and he was like, ooh. Apparently, she told Ryan and Esposito what it was. She never actually said exactly what it was he did, but he was like, obviously I did something. So he's like, you probably felt that I've, subconsciously, you felt that I was keeping something from you. He's like, okay, the truth be told is, I have been keeping something from you. Essentially, he got her bike restored, which I thought was very sweet of him. And he's like, you can go cross country. She's like, yeah, but I don't want to do it by myself. He's like, don't worry, I got my biking license as well. So he's got his own helmet, and he bought his own bike. So, it'd be kind of cute to see them go cross country. From our previews of the next episode, it's not like we actually get to see that, but the thought of it happening is very nice. Now moving on to this week's episode of Blindspot, which is a very interesting episode because it had a very heavily comedy element to it, which, this series keeps it kind of pretty serious. Like, it still had a serious side to it as well, but it's like heavily comedy driven because of, what's the actor's name? Emmers? I cannot remember. I'm so sorry. I'm always forgetting this actor's name. Because every time I see him, because I'm used to seeing him as Oz from The Listener. So every time I see him, I just instantly go, Oz! And he's a funny dude. And I love him in this episode, just all the different, little wisecracks he's making. Just any chance he can get to kind of, mess with Kurt or Allie or Jane, constantly bringing up the fact that it's like, oh, Kurt and Allie are together. That's so weird. You two make the worst couple ever. And just stirring up problems. He's like, oh yeah, what about you and Kurt? Because the way Kurt looks at you and stuff like that, trying to stir up problems, which he kind of sort of does. But basically, the main point in this episode was that he was going to give them a well-known guy. He's on the FBI's one of like top 8. He's number 8 on the most wanted list, and basically he supplies different terrorist groups with money. And his character, Rich.com, has connections to him. And basically, the whole point is they're going to steal art from this guy who, he's kind of a pretty big art thief. Steal these specific paintings he has to draw out this guy that they're hunting, and, give him the paintings and they'll arrest him. The art thief had very interesting security systems. I really like that. Basically, it's like a special watch he wears, and it basically, every time he walks in a room, the alarm is activated and then deactivated when he it kind of activates and deactivates as he walks by it, so it's very interesting. Plus, he has like a palm reader and everything, and then he has like a little switch so that in case anyone ever got into the painting room, just in case cops try to arrest him, he could press it and burn everything in the room. But also, to me, the best part of it, just in a twisted sense, is the paintings are set up on these little wires on the back. There's like 5 of them. If you take the painting off the wire, a shotgun blast will pierce the painting, making it useless, and most likely killing you because you're right there in front of the painting. Which is, interestingly enough, how the guy ended up dying, because Kurt moved out of the way and a shotgun blast hit him in the face. Pretty brutal. I love, though, like, my favorite aspect of this episode is literally how everything was them getting played. Like the twist at the end, him jumping off the building and having a freaking parachute. The SOB had a parachute hidden in his suit. It's like, what? Like, literally, and Kurt kind of broke it down, basically saying, like, literally everything they've done, everything has been him playing them from the very beginning, even getting beaten up in prison at the very beginning was part of the plan. I was just like, wow. And even Reed's kind of like, he has to be like one of the stupidest, smartest, like he has to be one of the dumbest smart people or the smartest idiot. And it's just like, honestly, you don't know, because just the way he runs his mouth all the time, you kind of wouldn't think that he's actually a smart person, but he is. He kind of just took a gamble on it. Like, the whole thing kind of rided on him taking a gamble. And, lucky for him, his whole gamble paid off because his art forger, who I really liked his art forger, because apparently they kind of have a relationship in the past. He kind of brought up the fact is that Rich kind of left him behind for a pretty lady. He's like, well, if it makes you feel any better, it was a very attractive woman. That doesn't make you feel better? Okay. And, and I love how that art forger kind of snapped at Patterson. She's like, oh, who are you? He's like, who are you? She's like, I'm special. He's like, yeah, you don't know anything about art, and kind of tearing her down. And she was kind of acting like she was about to jump at him, and Kurt kind of had to calm her down. I really liked that. But it was just kind of a very genius plan by a very smart, idiotic dude. And I loved it. Like I said, I just love it because it's like, to me, it's like seeing his character Oz from The Listener put into Blindspot. Like, he plays that character so well, because I mean, this is like the only other thing I've ever actually seen the actor in. I'm sure he's done plenty of other stuff, but this is like, this and The Listener are the only things I know him from. So another thing in this episode was the fact is that, Kurt's dad is sick. Jane comes to visit him because, Kurt's basically saying there's nothing the doctors can do for him. It's essentially, at this point, is trying to make him feel comfortable before his time is up. And Jane comes there and kind of like, plays up like, oh no, I don't. Because the dad's a little hurt. He's like, oh, you don't remember? He's just like, yeah, I remember you. And Kurt's like, do you really remember him? And she basically used what she learned from the photos to kind of convince Kurt that she is remembering stuff. Which I bet you on the inside, Jane is feeling a little crappy about it, because it's kind of like, you're kind of using the current situation, his dad being sick, to kind of further the operation of kind of getting closer to Kurt by making him think you're remembering stuff. It's like, there's probably a better time to try and manipulate him a little bit. I mean, you almost feel like that's definitely a little heartless. I mean, it's just the worst timing. It seems like the worst time to try and manipulate him like that. I feel like she could have picked a better time to do it, but And we also have Mayfair getting one of her friends, an old friend of hers, to look at the photo of Oscar, basically trying to clean it up a little bit and identify Oscar. It's from the traffic photo. And she's calling up the lady she met last episode at that bar. And, inviting her to go out with her next time she's in town, because she's like, I'm about to be in New York. And she's like, good. I was thinking about calling you. She's like, I was thinking about you too. To me, I'm super suspicious of this lady. I didn't bring it up last episode. I should have, but I totally forgot about it. I don't trust that lady. It just seems a little too convenient for her just popping into Mayfair's life now. I don't know. I just feel like she's being purposely put into Mayfair's life for a reason. Maybe she totally turns out to be a very nice lady that there's nothing suspicious about her, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like she's going to turn the tides on Mayfair and just, be trying to steal information from her, or she's, planted in her life to get information or whatever. But we also have her significant other, the one that quote unquote killed herself, is pops up at the back of her car in an episode and is like, wait, what? Because I don't did it ever say like how exactly she killed herself? Because I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about something else, but I keep thinking that she killed herself by jumping off a building or something like that. Isn't that how she killed herself? It's like, how did you fake that? It's like, no, she's still alive. And it's like, wait, what? What does that mean? Has she been hiding this entire time? And she's probably only come out of the woodworks because she heard about, Tom dying, and she's thinking like, maybe they know I'm still alive, and she's going to Mayfair to help her. Like, Mayfair to make sure that she's, that Mayfair stays safe, as well as making sure she stays safe. But it's like, if she really wanted to make sure Mayfair was safe, she would have come out of the woodworks long before now. So maybe it's like there's something unrelated to what they did. I feel like it has to be related to the program they used that basically started like that. Mayfair, Tom, and her significant other were involved in. Basically, it's them spying on them. Americans, and kind of using that information to arrest a lot of people, essentially. She had felt guilty about it, and she had killed herself over it, so I guess we really won't get any answers until next episode, so. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.